Potem pa lepo pozdravljeni vsi skupaj in dobrodošli na današnjem webinarju. Današnja tema je izredno pomembna za vse, ki oddajate nastanitve na platformah, kot so Booking, Airbnb, Expedia, Vrbo. Govorili bomo namreč o dinamičnem nastavljanju cen in o tem, kako lahko s pomočjo orodij, kot je Beyond, Smart Pricing, optimiziramo svoje prihodke. Kot vsi vemo, je trg kratkoročnih najemov zelo, zelo dinamičen. Povpraševanje, sezonskost, dogodki, konkurenca, vse to vpliva na ceno, ki jo lahko dosežemo na trgu. Zato postaja vedno pomembnejše, da cene ne nastavljamo statično ali pa celo spreminjamo cene samo po nekem našem občutku, ampak jih prilagajamo v realnem času, ne glede na dogajanje na trgu. Danes bomo zato govorili o tem, kako deluje dinamično nastavljanje cen, kako lahko s pomočjo podatkov bolje razumemo trg, kako lahko avtomatizacija pomaga, da iz svojih nastanitev ustvarimo optimalen prihodek in pa seveda, kako lahko sistem, kot je Beyond Smart Pricing, povežemo z Bentralom. Danes je z nami tudi gost iz podjetja Beyond, gospod Rodrigo. Beyond je eden izmed vodilnih ponudnikov rešitev za dinamično določanje cen za turistične nastanitve. Zelo smo seveda veseli, da si je vzel čas in se nam danes pridružil in bo z nami delil svoje znanje in pa izkušnje oziroma nam bo predstavil njihov sistem za dinamično nastavljanje cen. Z mano je kot vedno tudi Klemen Bednarik, ki bo tudi predstavil, kako vam lahko Bentral pomaga pri vzpostavitvi sistema Beyond ter odgovoril na marsikatero vaše vprašanje, saj Klemen tudi sam uporablja Beyond pri vsakodnevnem upravljanju nastanitev. Zdaj, če se bo kdo izmed vas po webinarju odločil, da bi dinamične cene uvedel tudi v svoje poslovanje, nam seveda lahko pišete na podpora@bentral.com. Za vzpostavitev sistema Beyond boste namreč potrebovali API ključ, ki vam ga bomo seveda z veseljem posredovali. Hello everyone and welcome. Thank you all for joining us today. It's great to see so many hosts interested in learning more about dynamic pricing and how to manage prices more effectively. At the beginning of the webinar, I shared with our audience that today pricing is not as simple as it used to be. Demand changes quickly, there are seasonal differences, local events, and many other factors that influence the prices we can set on platforms like Booking, Airbnb, Expedia. Because of this, many hosts are starting to use data and automatic pricing tools to help them adjust their prices and increase their revenue. That is why we organized today's webinar. And there is also another good reason for today's topic. Bentral is now connected with Beyond, which means hosts using Bentral can easily connect their system and start using dynamic pricing with Beyond. We are very happy to have our guest from Beyond with us today, Mr. Rodrigo. He will explain how dynamic pricing works and how the Beyond system helps hosts set better prices based on market demand. After his presentation, we will also have some time for your questions. So, Mr. Rodrigo, thank you very much for being with us today and for taking the time to join our community of hosts. We are really happy to have you here. As hosts, what we all want is quite simple. On one side, we want to take great care of our guests and offer them the best possible experience. And on the other side, we also want to run a successful and sustainable business. So we are really curious to hear your insights today. So the floor is yours.
Amazing. Thank you, Clara.
Thank you.
I am super excited to be here. I'm very sorry about my Slovenian. I'll have to do it in English, but I'm surely will get the point across. To introduce myself, I'm Rodrigo Lopez, okay? I work for Beyond from the Barcelona office, and we are super, super excited to work with Ventral. We work with over the top 30, 35 PMSs in the planet, and one of us is now Ventral, and we are super excited to start this partnership, okay? The idea of this webinar is just to share you some basic information of how dynamic pricing works, how do we do it, and basic tools that we're going to give you so you can start using it with the connection that we already have with Ventral. Okay? Keep in mind, at the end of this presentation, we will have some questions. Also, we'll give you the access to go directly through our channel, to our team, so we can answer more in-depth questions also in person. Okay? So I'm gonna share you my screen, and I think it's good. I think we're sharing, and this is who we are. Okay? So basically, the idea of today is we're gonna talk a little bit about performance, how do we work as a company, where do we come from, where is our data coming from. We're going to do a super quick demo, okay? And then we're going to talk about prices, and then we're going to do questions, okay? Keep in mind that this is a broad presentation. Really, if you guys want to go more in depth, once you come through our channel with Beyond, we can go in your specific market, in your specific typology of listing. Everything that we're going to see today, at the end of the day, is data, okay? And how this data that is already around us becomes histories, okay? And how we take those histories to actually price better our listings and how to get ahead of the competition, get more revenue, or just perform better in general, okay? So who are we? We are Beyond Pricing. We are the oldest company doing dynamic pricing for short-term rentals. We have over 700,000 properties around the planet that we work with doing dynamic pricing. We are in over 44,000 cities, okay? And we already passed the 15 billion in revenue through our clients, okay? So we are very well established here. We are a global company, and at the end of the day, Beyond is a tool for you guys to use. Beyond is an automatic tool for revenue management, for dynamic pricing, but at the end of the day, this is a partnership between Beyond and you that are the real experts of your areas, of your properties, of the typology of clients that you have. Okay? So how does it work and where do we see an increase in Beyond? Okay. Once you use dynamic pricing, keep in mind this is a very competitive market nowadays. It's developing, people are starting to use tools, and the reality is that once you go dynamic, your increases go very superior. Why? Because we see better positioning online. You and your prices are completely aligned to what happens in the market. Okay, we can be aligned to events, we can be aligned to market trends, we can be aligned to what happens year over year, because the reality is that every year the situation is different for our properties. Some years the market behaves in a way, some years we have more properties in the market, some years we have less properties in the market. So depending on what happens every day, we're going to be able to dynamize and change your prices, okay? Our average increase for our clients is around 18%, but obviously this really depends on each of you, okay? At the end of everything, as I said before, it's all data, okay? This data comes from three different places in Beyond, okay? The first of them is the OTAs. So we say Airbnb, Booking.com, Expedia Group. Expedia Group involves also VRBO and Expedia. And this is our main place of data, okay? We scrape the data in these OTAs to know how many properties are available, how fast do they sell, if there are events in the area, the seasonality for each typology of listing and market. There's many factors, okay, that we get the information from, and then we translate into this dynamic pricing, okay? We also have partner data, that is all of the other clients that work with us, also involved in the data process, and also search data, that is the data from the web pages of these clients, okay? So we have 3 layers of data, and these are basically numbers, okay? But what we want to do is we want to read these numbers, and we want to make these numbers into strategies, okay? We want to make these numbers into a way of working with your tariffs, a way of adjusting them. So if we see a slight change in this data, in these OTAs, automatically your prices will adjust. So you can go to sleep tranquil. You know that at the end of the day, your prices will always be optimized. Okay? How does it work? At the end, a dynamic price is just an array of different factors that subtracts and adds, and we get a final number for each day, every day. Okay? For example, we can have a random day. So July the 5th, we have a price of $171, and then we create this price. This is the place where the price is being burned. Okay, so for example, we get a base price of $190 because it's medium season. We add $10 more. Because it's Friday, we add $10 more. Because we have a lot of people searching online for these dates, we add 25. Because it's a special holiday weekend, we add 70. Because this year we're selling less than last year, we take out 26. Because we have maybe a booking and it's very hard to sell, we take out 63. Because we want to do a last minute discount, so we bring that reservation in, we take out 25. And then because we could have different custom strategies inside the algo, so you guys can also participate, we take out 20. Final price 171. At the end of this, what I want to show is we're gonna add many factors like a base price, seasonalities, days of the week, search of demand of people looking into the OTAs, events in your area. An event could be a concert, it could be a marathon, it could be a conference, it could even be an event that is not even in your area. It's in another country, in another place, but drives people to your area. Okay. What happens after an event? Because when you have a peak of an event that you get a lot of occupancy, then there's a drop. So what happens with that drop? How fast that drop is? Okay. Seasonality pacing. Okay. How fast do we go every season compared to other seasons in the past? Gap filling. So, for example, when you have 1 day, 3 days in the middle of reservations that we cannot sell, or we're not being fast enough to open the calendars and sell them, the system opens them and automatically price them. Time-based adjustments, no, based on your booking window. What is the booking window of my property? How fast people reserve in this market? And then adapt to that booking window, okay? And then custom strategies that we can set for each individual listing, okay? Because at the end of the day, this is short-term rentals. Each property is different. We're talking about houses, apart hotels, you name it. They're all different. So we need to be customized for each of them and price individually each of them, okay? Now we're going to go to the demo part. Okay, this is basically how the tool looks. It's a very basic view of the demo tool, but I want you to take the main idea. If you want to look in further, no worries. We are connected. We're in contact. You're gonna have my details, and you can just open an account with Beyond for free. Okay, so you can go in. You can look at these stats. I'm gonna leave this presentation and I'm going to jump into Beyond. Okay, so what are we seeing? This is a property. This is a fake property. Okay, this is a property that is in Oregon, in the United States, where we are originally from. It's in a specific address and has 2 bedrooms. So we have a typology of listing and a place for this listing. What do we see, or how do we analyze this? We basically look at the occupancy of the neighborhood. Okay, so we can see how is the occupancy for the future and 10 years in the past for each property. So for example, I can see that for March 26, the occupancy is 68%. Then for Tuesday, March 31st, so at the end of this month, the occupancy is 37%, and so on. Each day, there's a real occupancy for the future. This changes every day because if tomorrow we get a concert, we get a lot of reservations for one date, the percentage goes up at the moment, okay? And we want to be able to compare this occupancy to occupancies from the past. So, how was the occupancy in 2025? How was the occupancy in 2024? How was the occupancy in 2023? So, we can really make comparisons and understand how much are we selling today? How much were we selling last year? Okay? How fast are we selling compared to years in the past? And this becomes pricing. Okay? We can also see prices in the neighborhood, prices of hotels, but at the end, what we care the most is about this, because this is what is going to change your prices. Okay? How does it work? The reality is that dynamic pricing is in every industry in the planet. Well, I don't want to say every industry. Maybe I'm gonna get burned for this, but you can see it in hotels. You can see it in when you buy a ticket for a concert. You can see it when you order an Uber. They're all dynamic pricings, okay? And short-term rental industry could not stay behind. So the logic of how it works is the same. You're going to have a base price that is a medium price that you're going to have through your year. So we're going to grab your highest price, your lowest price, and we're going to find a middle point. This middle point will be, for example, this amount. Then we will have minimum prices or a minimum price, which is your safety net. So the least we could go for a price. And then the dynamic pricing that changes based on the market. Okay? So we can see that in moments of low demand, the price goes under the base price, and in moments of high demand, it goes up the base price, okay? And we can see how it changes, and we can see that there's an event here, so the price is very high, then it drops to another price, then we have a weekend that occupancy goes up, then another event, and so on, okay? Each day will be different. This changes every day for the entire next year for all of your properties, okay? And at the end of the day, having dynamic pricing doesn't necessarily mean to have the price very high or to have the price very low. Dynamic pricing is to have the correct price in the exact moment of time that we can leverage the most, okay? So this becomes what we already talked about, okay? Your pricing. This is a calendar for pricing. This will be connected to Ventral. Ventral is still 90%, 95% of your day-to-day use, but with Beyond, we're going to send the prices, okay? And if we go on top, we can see all of the factors, as we spoke before, that make a different price for each day. And these factors will consistently change depending on what happens in your market, how fast do they sell, how slow do they sell, if there's events, if there's no events, day of the week, seasonality, all the factors that we already talked about. Okay? This is the basic use of the tool. At the end of the day, we have several tools. We're going to be able to optimize also gap prices. We're going to be able to optimize many other things. But this is the main platform. Okay? I think it usually gives a lot of information already when we see all of this. Do not hesitate to ask them all. We'll try to take care of all of your doubts, okay? Everything good? You're feeling well? Too much information? I know somebody's controlling the chat, so not worry about it. Let's talk about the most important thing that everybody always wants to know, pricing, okay? This is no secret. You can find this in our website. It's public information. Ventral can also guide you to this if you need it. But Beyond works with two packages, okay? Dynamic pricing package that we call Growth. It's 1%, and Pro, that is 1.25%. Okay, Pro includes other features that we can talk about if needed. related to market information, more market analysis, but we will also focus on what we're seeing today, that is growth. Okay, we charge 1% of the total gross booking, so you sell, we charge. You don't sell, we don't charge. Okay.
Great.
And here you can find also our QR code if you want to scan it, and you'll get a demo with us so we can see all in this, but related to you guys. Okay. Clara, you have the floor again.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for your very comprehensive presentation, even though you shared a lot of valuable information. I'm sure our participants still have quite a few questions. So I would now suggest that we go through the questions and answer them. Clement, do we have the first question?
So we have the first question, and I'm gonna maybe summarize it. But
Okay.
if you have apartments, or if you have a hotel, or if you have rooms, to which prices Beyond compares your price? Does it compare to your to the similar properties, or all of them in the same place? For example, if you have apartments, but you're in a location that mostly has hotels, which has higher prices, are your prices compared to hotels or other apartments?
That is a fantastic question. Okay, so to go in a nutshell with this, okay, the reality is that professional revenue management tools like Beyond, we change your price, and I know this sounds weird, not taking in consideration the prices of your competition. I know it sounds weird, okay, but the reality is that from a professional perspective, we don't really know how your competition is pricing. So, for example, I don't know if your neighbors or the hotel that you have next to you or the apartments that you have next to you, I don't know if they use a channel manager. We don't know if they maybe have increases by channel. We don't know if they're professional and they're putting correct prices or not. So the prices around you should only be a guide to know if you're in the correct spectrum for your market, okay? But the reality is that your individual property, your house, your apartment, whatever you have, it has a price, and it's your price, because when you open your apartment, you need to pay for electricity, you need to pay for gas, you need to give them the keys. Your house has a price. This is unique to you because your house has views of the mountain, it has a jacuzzi, it could be high end, low end, and this is unique to you. That is why these are such intense tools in the way of data, okay? Because we change your price based on the market demand, not the market price. So, for example, if I know that you have a property that is an apartment that is surrounded with other 400 apartments, I need to see the other apartments, how fast do they sell, how many apartments are available, how many are left, if they sell faster than the years in the past, if they're not selling, if there's more offer this year than last year. Based on this is how we bring your price up and down, okay? Because looking at the price of your competitor should never be something that we look at from a professional perspective, because we don't know if that information is correct and the configurations that those persons have in the properties. I hope this answers your question.
Thank you. And if I set the basic and the minimum price in Beyond, how does that translate to Booking.com and Airbnb? If I have more rates and genius discounts and different discounts on Booking and on Airbnb, whatever, how does this translate on those channels? Do I set up all the pricing in Beyond? And how does it connect with how does it translate to the channel?
That's a great question. So when we speak about a pricing strategy, guys, keep in mind that we are analyzing your entire chain of prices. Okay, so Beyond is where the pricing begins, where we create the price, okay? Then we send this price to Ventral, and maybe you in Ventral add 15% for Airbnb, 20% for Booking, or maybe you know that you add Genius at the end, so you add to Ventral 30% increase because you know you're going to get a discount at the end. All of this is your strategy, and each of you have a different strategy. There's some of you that use increases, there's some of you that just add the final price to the beginning. So depending on how you have it configured, we will configure it in Beyond. Okay? This is how 99% of the revenue managers and property managers work. So there's a way of doing everything, okay? But the reality and our recommendation is also that once you start using dynamic pricing, keep in mind dynamic pricing already has in consideration discounts. We already optimize the property. So we always recommend to try to lower the most as possible the discounts that you may have in your final stage. If you want to use Genius, that's okay. If you want to use maybe another thing that you know that works very good, that's also okay. Okay? But we'll have to keep it in mind when we price it. Because if Beyond creates a price of 100 euros, we send it to Ventral. In Ventral, you maybe add 20% for Booking, so we send 120. Ventral sends 120 from Ventral to Booking, and then you apply 10% discount. You get 110. So these steps we need to understand when we do your pricing. But do not worry about it because the tool is made for that and it works so we can actually know what is your average price.
Sometimes there's a fear that since we're a very small, specific country, programs from different countries don't have enough data from our markets. Is this a problem for Beyond, or is it already, or is it taking into account from Booking, from Verbo? Does it have enough information to do correct pricing for our properties?
I mean, that's a very good question. I mean, the reality here, guys, is that there's different types of programs, okay? When we talk about revenue management and dynamic pricing, keep in mind that we are connected to the OTA, so Booking, Airbnb, and Expedia. Expedia also involves VRBO, okay? So whatever is there, we can see it. The more is there, we can see it. And obviously, we depend on them to have this visibility on the market. At today, you are working with Booking.com, you are working with Airbnb, you are working with Expedia Group. So if you're working with them and it's available in your country and we can see it from Beyond, we can price it. Keep in mind, obviously, that depending on the area that you are, there's a different type of density. So, for example, if you have an apartment in the city center, there's more density of data. So the price or the perimeter around that property is probably going to be smaller. If you have a listing in the mountains, maybe there's less listings by volume in your market. So maybe the spectrum that we need is going to be a little bit higher. So we're going to take a few kilometers around it. The system will adapt, but so far it's working great. We've been working with Ventral and so far results are very good. So the answer is yes, but I understand that train of thought.
So, and regarding, since we're with the questions of Slovenia as a country and information on it, what about holidays or events in the region? Does Beyond see that as well? Like, for example, in Kranjska Gora, we have Planica, the ski jumping tournament every year. And in some other areas, they have different events, maybe only this year and on different dates. Does Beyond see those events as well, or do we have to handle that by hand?
That's a great question. So in the spectrum of events, there's two typology of events, okay? There's the recurring events and the new events. So for example, a recurring event would be something that happens every year, like the ski tournament, like Easter, New Year's Eve. It's something that it's always the same. Maybe it's in different dates, but happens every year. And then there is a new event. So it could be a new concert of, I don't know, somebody that is going to play in Slovenia, or maybe it's a new marathon or a conference that they do every 5 years. So depending on the typology of the event, we can see different things. So for example, an event that happens every year, it's already super taken in consideration because we have data of all of the market, and we can know if Easter is in a different day this year, if it changed, if it not, how much did you sold it last year, how fast is it selling this year. We can see 10 years in the past of data for these events, okay? And then a new event, something that is completely new, basically what we can see is the demand of the market. So for example, if we know, imagine you get a new festival in July from an artist that goes there and has, I don't know, a concert. We can see, okay, there is 1,000 apartments in this place, and in July, they're starting to sell very, very fast. We're starting to notice something that is outside the ordinary from those dates. So automatically the system detects that there's an event there and prices. So it's offer and demand. There's 1,000 apartments, 500 apartments, whatever you want. How fast do they sell compared to years in the past? And that gives us a peak of occupancy. A peak of occupancy, it's an event. So once we understand there's a peak of occupancy, automatically the system adds a name to it, okay? And your pricing. The magic of these type of things, or these type of tools, is that we react to the market. So whatever happens, whatever type of event happens, if it's strong, if it's not so strong event, the system picks up because it's a fact number. There's a number of listings next to you, and they sell or they don't sell. Okay, and that gives us visibility on everything that happens event-wise.
Awesome. Thank you. And regarding gap fills, you can automate a lot of things in Beyond. I know this from personal experience. But one of the questions that popped up, and it's really interesting, what if I want to first fill a longer stays, and then I want to fill gaps between the stays, only after the long stays came in? So for example, I have a 4-night stay or 3-night stay, and then between them I have a gap of 1 or 2 nights. Can this be filled and open automatically, or is it possible that the prices go down and up between the gap fills to fill them?
That's a good question. Also, a little bit maybe complicated question to show without seeing it, but I think it's the overall answer is yes. Okay, so basically the system, every time that we find a gap fill, no, we can decide if we want to sell that gap fill all together. So for example, you have a gap of 4 nights in your high season that are not selling. The system automatically opens the gap in Ventral, and then you can decide, do I want to sell that gap all together 4 days? Do I want to be flexible and sell 2 out of 2? Do I only want to be flexible in certain amount of time, or I don't want to be flexible ever? Or maybe it's not a matter of you putting a gap fill. Maybe you want to be dynamic with your minimum stay, and you want to say, my minimum stay is 5 nights, but the closer I get to this date, I tell the system to automatically go down the minimum stay. So if Beyond sees that in a month time, for example, there's no reservations and my minimum stay is from 5 nights, you tell the system go to 4. And if in 20 days there's no reservations, tell the system go to 3. And if in 5 days there's no reservation, tell the system go to 2. Okay? So there's different ways of playing around with the tool depending on what strategy you want to have for each property. Okay, and we can individually have that for each of one in your portfolio or for all of them together. Okay, as granular as we want to be. I hope that answers your question without being too complex.
Thank you.
Clement.
Maybe if I just tell it from ventral side, how then when you're once connected with Beyond, how it works. Beyond sets the pricing and the minimum stays, and the settings of minimum and the price go to ventral, and then ventral sends it to the channels. So minimum stays and prices are no longer set in ventral. Whatever you set in ventral for the minimum prices and for the prices and the minimum stays will get basically run over by Beyond, by the settings in Beyond. So once you're connected to Beyond, if you want to change minimum pricing, if you want to change minimum stays or the stay for a specific date, you change it in Beyond, not in ventral. And if we go to the next question, so sometimes people that are already very well experienced in pricing and renting out their properties, and they're doing great, getting higher prices than the market, or have luxury properties, they're sometimes scared that because of smart pricing, they'll sell for a lower price than they should have. Is that a fear because Beyond looks at the market, or as you have already explained, Beyond looks at your history, not the market, right?
That's a fair question. I think that's probably one of the questions I get the most, especially because people always feel their listing is super premium listing, which sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But that is a thing for another day. The reality is that Beyond looks at the market. We look at the history of the listing, but when we talk about pricing something, if it's premium or not premium, keep in mind that you are the one that puts the guidelines to how we price. Okay, so if you have a property that it's a premium property, it's an amazing house with jacuzzi for 10 people, brand new, and you know that you have a limit, no? You know that your house is worth X and X and X. That is fine because in Beyond, you can put the minimums that you want for your entire year in different stages. So for example, you say my house is so good that at least in the summertime, the least that I could get with this, it would be 300 euros a night, 400 euros a night. So you can set those parameters in Beyond and tell the system in this summertime, never go under this amount, okay? And at the end of the day, you set up your entire portfolio on your entire houses on your guidelines. Basically, what we do is we play around your strategy and your minimum. So you would never get less than what you want to get. Okay. Obviously, our job is also to show you the market and explain you that maybe those prices are high. Maybe it's gonna be hard to sell. But at the end of the day, you set the price that you want to put. Okay. These are tools that are used a lot in high-end property. So, for example, we are super present in I don't know, in the Balearic Islands where there's massive villas that sell for thousands a day. Okay. And we're also in Greece. I just came from there. So related to high end and to how you put your limits, do not worry because you can set your parameters in Beyond and you can put to your listing the guidelines or where you price.
Thank you. And we've now covered those who are already pros at renting their properties. Beyond will still help you, Beyond will still maximize your revenue. But what if you're new? What if you're new to the entire business? What if you're new, you have a new property and you don't have a history of renting that property? How does Beyond manage that property in this case?
That's a good question. At the end, keep in mind Beyond spectrum is wide. We have, for example, my mom uses Beyond. She has 2 properties. I help her, obviously, she's my mom, but she uses it by herself. And then we have clients that have, I don't know, 5,000 properties, massive companies that make millions and millions a year. So it really depends on how you who you are, how many properties you have, if you can use or cannot use the tool. The reality is that it's there for everybody, okay? And if you don't have data, it's your first time using it, you can still use Beyond, okay? Keep in mind that your pricing changes based on the market, based on what is happening around this property. If you don't have data for that property, that's okay. Imagine when you add a listing to Airbnb, it's a new listing. What do? You need to play around at the beginning. You need to change the pictures. You need to put maybe a more aggressive price to get some reservations. You need to work at the beginning. It's the same with dynamic pricing. If you don't have maybe a lot of data, it's okay. We can price based on the market. We'll adjust week over week, and we'll find your sweet spot until we can have that specific price that you have the comments inside of your listing, that you have the optimization in Airbnb or Booking, so you can be seen in the platforms. Okay, so anybody can work with Beyond. Really, the tool is super easy to see. I think maybe today we didn't have enough time to see the tool, but keep in mind that, I mean, this is always my reference. The system is so optimized that you can go and download the app. There's an app for Beyond for Android and iPhone, and you can even manage it from there. So if you can manage it from your phone, it means that it's for everybody to be used.
Great. Can I have one question as well?
Yes, Clara.
How long does it usually take for hosts to start seeing results after they've been using Beyond?
Well, that really depends, okay, on how you price. Obviously, you need to make momentum in your listing, okay? Once you start pricing, we start changing the price from the first moment you activate Beyond, okay? So the dynamic pricing is, you can sign up today, and at the end of this afternoon, you're already dynamically pricing, okay? How the results come? Well, it depends on your market, depends on your property. We need to build momentum. We need to make your property go up in searches, go up in comments, go up in the positioning in Airbnb and Booking.com. Could be a few days, could be a couple weeks. At the end, this is dynamic. So your property is gonna be high. It could go down, but then it could go high again. So the results you start to see depending on each specific case, but the dynamic pricing is gonna happen from the moment you activate the tool, and from there, in a couple of days, you're gonna see what's happening. Is it moving? Is it not moving? It really depends, but they tend to be very fast.
Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions?
I think we're slowly moving to the end of the questions and to the end of the time that we have. But maybe one of the last questions, does Beyond Pricing take into account higher reviews? So we know that properties with higher review scores can price higher than those with lower reviews.
Uh-huh.
And since we're talking about reviews that are specific to Airbnb, Booking, and the OTA channels, OTA channels, OTA channels also offer smart pricing.
Of course.
How can you still use the smart pricing there, or should you turn it off and only use Beyond Pricing in this case?
Okay, that's starting from there. I tell you directly, when you activate Beyond Pricing, we have a partnership with these OTAs, and we have a partnership with Ventral. Automatically, when you activate Beyond, Airbnb and Booking.com delegate their prices to us. So you cannot use dynamic pricing, that the one that they have in their system, because you're using ours. So it's blocked. So you're safe in that case. And keep in mind that those dynamic pricing might be good, but at the end of the day, there's a interest fight because Airbnb wants to get the best prices, Booking.com wants to get the best prices, and I'm pretty sure that you notice that when you use Airbnb dynamic pricing or Booking dynamic pricing, it's always going down. Prices always going down because they want to have the best rates in their platforms, which is normal. They're a business. That's what they want to hit. All the reservations through them. Beyond is a professional tool. So that is why we partner with them and with Ventral because we get all of the market and we really optimize it. And these are tools that professionals use. So I wouldn't recommend if you use Beyond, I would recommend you to migrate from those um, other tools that you used to use. Okay. And related to your other question that I think I lost it. Can you repeat it?
regarding reviews. So
Ah,
does Beyond taking into account uh, properties with high review scores, since properties with higher review scores do tend to get higher priced reservations.
uh-huh. Okay. I'm going to backflip this question to you. So beyond actually this is one of the characteristics of the algo, and you are able to see it when you see all of the difference and why the algo is changing when you have bad reviews. So, for example, if I see that your property has bad reviews in Airbnb, the system will say, okay, this property doesn't have the best reviews, so let's lower the price a little bit here and there to get more reservations, to get better reviews, to go up. Okay, so at the end, the tool does it the other way around. If we see that your property is under reviewed compared to what is around her, around that property, the system will take that in mind in the algo to price it the correct way. Okay, so yeah, to your answer, yes.
Wonderful.
One,
So
okay.
now we'll finish with the questions, but one
May I
last
have
one.
just one more?
Yeah. So
Yeah, we have a lot of
for
questions.
new for those who are new and just want to try Beyond, like want to use it for one of their properties, just to try if it works for them.
Hmm.
Is there any reason not to try it? Are there any costs to try it? Are there any um, like time-based limitations of how much time you need to use Beyond before you can stop using it if you're not okay with it?
There's none. I mean, it's if, and that's why I tell also my I don't know my clients or people that come to me, and if you want to get if you have doubts, just try it. There's no commitment really if you want to put one house, two houses, if you want to try for 1 month, 2 months. Um, there's actually a value to that. You can try for a couple weeks, a couple months. You like the results, you don't like the results, you disconnect, you go back to Ventral. It's up to you, really. And I recommend you try it. At the end, you'll see the results by yourself. I always encourage people to try it with properties that are normal properties because sometimes I do get people that say, I'm going to try this property that never sells in Beyond. Obviously, Beyond is a tool that is here to help and it works amazingly, but we also don't do miracles. Maybe there's things that maybe I would recommend to put one of your normal listings, try it there for a couple weeks, for a couple months. At the end, if the results are good and you like it, you're gonna stay. If it's not, you just disconnect it and that's it.
Okay, one more question for the end. What is the system setup like and what kind of support do you provide?
Okay, so the setup with Ventral, it's fairly easy. Okay, once you create the account, you just have to go to Ventral, get your API key, and put it in Beyond. Okay, it's really not that hard. Please, at the moment, as this is a new partnership, don't doubt to just go through me through this QR code so we can connect it together if you need it. If you see that maybe you're having troubles with it, just write to our support email that you can find on our website and they can help you out connected. the reality is that it's super easy, because once we're connected with Ventral, we take all of the information from there. You don't have to do anything, rather just create the account and connect it. Okay. Support is 24/7. Okay. We have support staff here in Barcelona, in the United States, and basically you just have to write us and we're there to help. Okay.
Thank you.
So for all of those who want to use Beyond, first you'll have to contact Ventral, and so on the email provided by Clara, or podpora@ventral.com, and ask for the API code and connection with Beyond. Ventral will provide you the API code. You'll have to create your user account on Beyond and open the special link that we will send to those who want to use Beyond. That special link will open a website for you on Beyond with your login information, and you'll put the API code in there. Once you put the API code in Beyond, all the listings in your Ventral will be added to Beyond user interface. That does not mean that Beyond is in any way already working. You can still set up one unit, one apartment, one room at a time, use all of them or none of them, and disable Beyond at any time and connection with Ventral. You can have the listings in Beyond and yet not activate dynamic pricing if you're not ready yet. A lot of people in the comments asked about my experience, since I'm already using Beyond. I think it's now for 6 months. We can do a deeper dive on my experience another time if you're all interested. But I'm very happy with Beyond. I first was a little bit skeptical. I didn't know how it's going to work. I connected all of my properties into Beyond, but I only activated one at a time. So first I activated one of them, tested how it worked. I was very happy. I activated another one, and I was very happy. I tested out for 4 months, I think, on 2 properties, and afterwards I activated all the other ones.
I have to say that Clement, it's one of my first clients from Ventral, and it's not the only one. Obviously, we cannot reveal that information in this webinar, but I think he's seeing good results, and I think we are working great together. And at the end, you have to try it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Rodrigo, thank you for your time today. Unfortunately, we have to end the webinar due to time. And thank you very much to everyone for joining us today, and see you soon on the next webinar. Tako da hvala lepa vsem, ki ste bili danes z nami. Kot vedno velja še povabilo, da se nam pridružite v zaprti Facebook skupini Skupnost uporabnikov Ventral, kjer pa lahko rečemo še kakšno na to temo. Tako da hvala lepa vsem skupaj in se vidimo kmalu, ne?